And welcome in everybody to this is our second edition of Why I Coach, and we are joined by University of Memphis defensive coordinator Mike MacIntyre. Coach, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing great. Appreciate you having me on.
Hey, no problem. So Coach MacIntyre comes to Memphis with a we'll just call it a illustrious career, because I don't like to say anybody's had a long career because that makes me feel old. That started as a GA in 1990 with the Georgia Bulldogs, and then he moved to Davidson, who was Division III at the time. Also, Brian's going to ask about it. Spent a year in Germany with a German football team, and then, of course, UT Martin, Temple, Ole Miss for 4 years, 5 years in the NFL, and then Duke, and then, of course, was the head coach at San Jose State. And the Memphis tie there is his athletic director, the previous athletic director at Memphis, Tom Bowen. And then spent 5 years at Colorado and was at Ole Miss last year and joined the Memphis staff this year. So I'm going to let Brian kind of take over from here, but I do want to mention you were the AFCA Assistant Coach of the Year, and you won every possible Coach of the Year award in 2016 for your work at Colorado, and also got the Get in the Game Impact Award in 2018. We'll talk about that too, along with the Rod Carew Leadership Award. But Brian, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, I like to start back in your high school days. You went to Brentwood Academy. From my research, you played quarterback and DB. Talk about your high school days. What was it like? And I think was it your freshman and sophomore year they won the state championships?
Yes. Yeah, we won it my freshman, sophomore, and junior year.
And junior, okay.
Should have won it my senior year, and got upset by MUS. And so got beat in the semifinals there. We should have won it 4 years in a row. MUS did a good job that night. But I loved my time at Brentwood Academy. What the school stood for is phenomenal. It's based on it's a non-denominational school, but it's the base of it based on a triangle. Bottom is Christianity, on the side is academics and athletics. And it was a small school. And our head coach, Carlton Flatt, I think until maybe this year, he was the winningest coach in Tennessee football history. I think the coach at Alcoa passed him. And so I think that it was a great time, great experience. I actually met my wife there. We were high school sweethearts. So been married 32 years this June. So she's put up with me for a while. But I loved it there. Had a lot of great friends, a lot of friends there in Nashville now. It was a great time.
Now, we ask all the coaches this. Back then, I guess, did you have a cassette tape? Because we can't say what was in your CD player because they weren't around yet. So did you have an 8-track or was it cassette tape? What did you have in your device?
I had both. One of my favorite ones to listen to was the Rockies theme song, for the very first Rocky fights. And then, of course, when they had the second one, Eye of the Tiger, I'm dating myself. I'd love to listen to Hit Me With Your Best Shot by Pat Benatar. And then I started wearing the cassette tape to walk, what do they call them? The walkie. Yeah, walk phones. Yeah. And so I had those, and those were, we just saw everything change so fast. It seemed like in about a 4-year period, you went from an 8-track tape to a cassette tape to a CD, and then it was on iPods. It just seemed like it transferred so fast.
And Coach, the kids today don't know the struggle of having to drive around the block. You couldn't rewind the 8-tracks. You had to drive around the block if you wanted to hear it again.
Oh yeah, it was something else, no doubt about it. And then when they would break, hey, you had to did them and tape them together, grind it back in there, and yeah, it was something else.
Now, did you play multiple sports, or was it just football for you?
No, I played multiple sports: football, basketball, and ran track.
Now, you said basketball?
Yes, loved basketball.
What position did you play in basketball?
I played point guard, and we didn't have a 3-point line or anything like that back then. I wish we did. No time clock or anything, so it was a different game, but it was a lot of fun. I loved playing basketball.
Now, before you went to the Vandy, talk about the recruiting process. Did your dad coached at Vanderbilt? Did you make him recruit you? Did you like Dad? Yeah, let me hear your sales.
He was the head coach there and had did excellent there, and had turned them around. They were horrendous. He turned them around and won SEC Coach of the Year and a lot of National Coach of the Year awards. And so he would always say a thing. People ask him, because the recruiting, you didn't have as much scrutiny under it as you do now. They had the radio shows and different things, and I'll never forget, they had it in the paper. Someone had asked how's the recruiting going for Mike MacIntyre? He goes, well, I know one thing, I'm sleeping with his mother. So we'll see how that works out. So that was a good, I enjoyed playing for my dad, and he did a great job there. And then after my sophomore year, we didn't win enough games. They let him go, like it is in our business. And I transferred to Georgia Tech. Yeah, I looked at going to a few different schools and in the SEC and in other areas, and also looked about going to play basketball at some smaller colleges, and decided to go to Vanderbilt.
Nice. And then when you went to Georgia Tech, I was looking at some of the stats. I saw that you had an interception in '87, but could not find who was it against, and who was the quarterback. So
Yeah.
do you remember?
No, I had an interception in '87, but it was against Indiana State at the time, a homecoming game. Had a pick there. I played safety and did some punt returning and some kick returning, and all that. Enjoyed it there. I played for. It's interesting. I played at Vanderbilt for my dad, who won National Coach of the Year and SEC, and Bobby Dodd Coach of the Year. Then I played for Bill Curry, who won National Coach of the Year, Bobby Dodd Coach of the Year at Georgia Tech. Then he left and went to Alabama, and I played for Bobby Ross, who won National Coach of the Year, Bobby Dodd Coach of the Year. So I had three phenomenal head coaches that I watched and learned from, that I still use some of the things they do to this day. I got to see Coach Curry last week at the Bobby Dodd golf outing. It was a lot of fun there in Atlanta. So it's a good deal.
All right. And what was the thought process when you first got into coaching? Why did you choose the coaching profession?
Well, it was just in my blood. At first, I went to work as a logistics manager for 1 year using my management degree from Georgia Tech, and then got a call in the summer to be a graduate assistant at Georgia, and went there and just started and just absolutely loved it, and felt kind of like the calling of it. That's what I was supposed to do. I loved working with young men and helping mold those guys into men, and working with them and seeing their intensity with it and their passion. And I had seen my dad work with so many guys. I just really enjoyed it and loved the competition of the game, loved the aspect of the game, but really loved working with the young guys.
Hey, talk about that 1 year in Germany.
Yes.
What was that like? Is there any crazy
Yeah.
stories from football in Germany?
Yeah. So it was a summer right there. We had, a little bit more time off in the summer than we do now. And so my brother had gone over there to play, and they needed someone to come over and coach it. And so I went over, and my wife and I, and my daughter was just one at the time. And we went over there, and for about a month and a half, about a 6-week period in the summer, because that's how they played their season, and then they'd have a break and start another one. It was a great experience, and they won the championship of their league, and it was just a lot of fun. And seeing the sights and sounds of all of West Germany, and it was really interesting because it was 1993, and the wall had just gone down, and so we were able to cross over into East Germany, and it was like going back in time. The communist country compared to the democracy country, it was just like going back in time 50 years. It was night and day. And it was really an interesting time, and to see all that. And we were able to get over into Austria and Czechoslovakia and Prague and see all those places was really neat. But coaching was a lot of fun. We still stay in touch. I've sent a lot of guys over there, still stay in touch. The young man that started the team that was there, that was my age at the time, he's kept running it. And he's kind of like the owner of it now. And he comes over to games every couple of years to see our games with his wife and kids. So it's been a lot of fun.
Now, before I throw it to John for some questions for him, if you weren't coaching, what profession would you be doing? Would you be teaching?
Now, if I wasn't football coaching, I'd be basketball coaching. That's what I'd be doing. I really would. I love basketball, and that would be something I would have probably tried to do if I wasn't doing that. If I wasn't in that, I probably would have been in some type of sales, commercial real estate or something like that, which would have been good up to about right now. Then it would be very good to be in commercial real estate at this time. But I would probably have done something like that, I would think.
Yeah, John?
Yep. So you make it back from Germany, and it's so funny how small of a world coaching is. You end up coaching at UT Martin as defensive coordinator, where your dad saw his early success as a head coach. And so you kind of, I guess they were still 1AA during that time period. So that kind of gets your feet wet there. What were, because you've coached at pretty much every level, but is it really just the scholarship numbers? Is that what you have a problem with at FCS, is just the number of bodies?
Yeah, you're able to split the scholarships up, which is a little bit different. Everyone's still hungry to play, still wants to be successful. The money's so much different as far as travel and what you can give the players and food and all that type of thing. But there's still an absolute passion to be successful at that level. To me, at that level, the teams that invest the most, and that probably goes at every level, but at that level, there really is a big discrepancy. The teams that invest the most in their program are the ones that stay successful, because there's such a big gap compared to what there is in the group of five or the Power Five level. There is a gap, but you're able to compete. And that level, there is a big difference. You have every gamut of, some have half scholarships, some have a full allotment of scholarships, some have cost of attendance, some don't. I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, it's funny because we had Coach Johns a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about he was at Dayton, where they don't give scholarships, but they play at the FCS level. So you moved from you left Temple in '98, and you moved to Ole Miss. Your first stint in the SEC there, outside of your 1 year as a GA at Georgia. So what was the transition like going from the Big East into the deep water of not only the SEC but the SEC West?
Yeah, I going there with Coach Cutcliffe was a great opportunity for me, and being able to go there with him was just so awesome. It was big time football, and we really I had lived in Oxford for 1 year when my dad was the defensive coordinator for Steve Sloan. And then, of course, my dad was an assistant at Vanderbilt. And then I was born in Miami, Florida. We kind of grew up all over the South. He coached at Clemson, all different places at Vanderbilt. And so I was really excited about being in the SEC. Knew a great deal about Coach Cut. Had just met him a couple of times. It's an interesting story. He called me, and I go, "Coach, I'm excited about you talking to me." I said, "Why are you talking to me?" He goes, "Well, you recruited the Nashville and the West Tennessee area. And I recruited Nashville and West Tennessee area. Coach Cutcliffe did." And I bumped into him a couple times, and he said every school, I would beat him to all these different schools, and I'd be working. And he goes, all the high school coaches in the area said, "Cut, if you ever get a head job in the SEC, you better hire that guy." And I was just a young guy, just recruiting. I said, "Really?" So it kind of shows you, if you work hard, people notice. And so he hired me as the receivers coach and the recruiting coordinator. And at that time, recruiting coordinator is a lot different than it is now. You truly coached the position, and you handled all the recruiting, and you had the VHS tapes and all that stuff. You had to send out everything was done by paper. So it was a great job and a great opportunity for me. And I loved working for Coach Cut. We had some really good players. The first player that Coach Cut signed, and I was the recruiting coordinator, so I can take 1% of the credit of it, was Eli Manning. So that was a pretty good first sign as your recruiting coordinator.
Yeah,
it was all Coach Cut.
Yeah, he may have turned out okay. I think I remember hearing some stories about him.
Exactly.
So
right.
A lifelong defensive guy ends up as the wide receivers coach.
Yeah.
I guess if anybody's going to know the wide receiver position, it's the DB coach, right?
Well, it was really interesting. So he called me, interviewed me, and then he called me back, and he said, "Mike, I want you to come here. I want you to be the recruiting coordinator, but I want you to coach receivers if you want to do that." And so I said, "Yes, sir, I'd be interested." So I talked to my dad about it, and he goes, "Mike, if you can work for Coach Cutcliffe, work on the offensive side of the ball, and then you're going to learn so much about offense. If you ever go back to defense, you're going to learn offensive line play. You're going to read what the quarterbacks are doing." And what Coach Cut told me at that time is he had always called the plays from the box. He was the coordinator. Now he was going to be on the sidelines. He wanted somebody in the box that knew secondary, that could tell him and relate to him here's what they're in, coach. Here's what they're doing. I was his eyes in the box that he had used before. And so I did that for 2 years, and then he made some changes and wanted to move me back to defense. And so the rest of that was history. But it was a great 2 years. It was a lot of fun.
So after your Ole Miss experience, you get to go work for some guy, Bill Parcells or something like that. I think he did okay for himself.
Yes, he did.
5 years in the NFL. That's a lifetime in the coaching profession in the NFL. So. And you got to work for one of those teams nobody talks about, either the Dallas Cowboys. So what was it like working for Coach Parcells? And if you thought you were in the deep water in the SEC, now you get into the NFC East.
Right.
Yeah.
It was awesome coaching for Coach Parcells. I kind of got my PhD in coaching, and because all you do in the NFL is coach football, learn all the X's and O's. There's no recruiting, none of that. And so it was a great experience. I really enjoyed it. And, you know, growing up, Dallas Cowboys was my team too. So on top of that, that was a huge fan of them growing up. But I really enjoyed it. And Coach Parcells gave me a great opportunity to coach there. And then, you know, I got to coach with Mike Zimmer, Gary Gibbs. You know, I can name guy after guy. And Todd Bowles, all those guys were all together. And it was so much fun, and still stay in contact with those guys. And now. And then after 5 years, I decided I wanted to get back into college, and because I wanted to be a college head coach. I missed the camaraderie with a young kid, of kind of maturing him. That was a thing that I really didn't think I'd miss, but I really did miss. And so the mentoringship is part of what's in my DNA, and that's something I wanted to be able to do again. And I think being able to do all that and having all the expertise I had from the NFL has really helped my college coaching career since then.
So you return to college for 1 year at Duke. You end up being the AFCA FBS Assistant Coach of the Year. Improved. The Duke defense has their lowest total points per game in 20 years, and 3 opponents to less than 10 points, which, you know, defense is certainly your specialty. But talk about that 1 year at Duke and what that meant for you.
I was actually there 2 years. Not trying to correct you. I was actually there 2 years. And it was a great going there. Coach Cut called me, and, you know, he called us, and my wife and Lisa said, let's go. And, you know, Duke was the worst football program in America. And everybody thought, what happened? Why are you going there? I said, well, I want to go work for Coach Cut. And my dream was when I was growing up was not to be a pro head coach. My dream was to be a college head coach. So I said, that's my opportunity. Let's go there. We do well at Duke with the pedigree we've had. Everywhere we've been, something will work out for us. And I wanted to help Coach Cut get that started and going. So we went there and did that. And it was a really fun 2 years. And then San Jose State came calling.
And you end up joining, as I said earlier, former Memphis athletic director. Now, did Tom Bowen hire you at San Jose State?
Yeah, Tom Bowen gave me my first chance. He took his chance on me. And it was the place was really in a rough spot.
Yeah.
And they were going to drop football. I found out after I took the job if we didn't win, and we ended up winning, and, you know, the most wins they've ever had in the school's history and highest record ever. You know, so it was great. And Tom is a football AD. I'll tell you that much. He gets it, and he understands how to win football. And I'm excited that he's at Arkansas State now. Arkansas State, they've got an excellent football AD there. There's no doubt about it.
So you have a lot of success. You end up with the first end of season BCS ranking in 2012 at San Jose State. Just 2 years removed from going 1-12, and you end up 10-2. You end up number 24 in the country. The FCA gave you the Grant Teef National Coach of the Year award. I know that means a lot to you, because that's more. Let's talk a little bit about that award, because that's more than just you go 10-2. There's some off the field stuff there as well.
Yes, Grant Teef had always been a hero of mine from Baylor University, and, you know, he's also the head of the AFCA, and the FCA had always been a big part of my life. We went to FCA camps all the time as a kid and growing up, and, you know, they look at a lot of your integrity and character and everything involved in that, and getting that award was really, really special. And so my dad was alive when I got that award. So that was, he was able to be at the ceremony and everything. So I remember that like yesterday.
And then you moved to Colorado, and you go to Boulder, and it comes together for you really in 2016 was a big year for you. And that's the year you won all the Coach of the Year awards. So tell her, what about your time in Boulder? That had to be, that's one of those places to me that's a very interesting place to coach. And because if you're in the Pac-12, you're kind of on the outskirts of the Pac-12. So talk a little bit about that, your time there in Boulder.
Yeah, Boulder was a great experience for our family and for myself. And we really enjoyed it there. And, you know, the coaching staff and the players did just like at San Jose State. You know, all those individual awards are team awards. and the coaching staff just did a phenomenal job of building up Colorado. Of course, when we went there, and they were not very good at all. I think they had been beaten by Fresno State the year before we got there 55-7 at halftime. And so it was, and then so we got it going. And then 2016, we had a phenomenal year. The kids just did excellent, and the coaches did. And we had in 100 years of Pac-12 football was the biggest turnaround ever. So it was exciting, a great year, and just give all the credit to those kids and the coaches.
So as you said, this business earlier, if you don't win enough games, you just have to move on. And that's a huge part of it. But you end up, Matt Luke gives you a call and says, hey, how about coming and being on my staff back at Ole Miss?
Right. Matt and I worked together 2 different places. Once at Ole Miss when he was a graduate assistant. He actually played in the bowl game. The first bowl game we played against Texas Tech, we came in there and he was a player. The next year he was a GA. And then we coached together at Duke. And then he called me after I got let go at Memphis. And I was actually thinking about maybe sitting out a year and trying to figure everything out. But when Matt called, I wanted to go help Matt. If you've never met him, he's a phenomenal guy. He's great. He's what college football is all about. And he's an excellent football coach. And we went there and got a little better, but didn't win enough, and they let him go. But he's a great friend and somebody I really wanted to try to help. And wish I could have helped him a little bit more.
So then that kind of brings us full circle, and you just make the quick jaunt up Highway 72, and you come up to Memphis, and now you're the Memphis defensive coordinator. What attracted you to the Memphis job on paper when you first got that opportunity? Talk a little bit about the opportunity, but what was the big draw for the Memphis job?
Well, number one, Memphis was doing so well over the previous 6 years, phenomenally well. The new facilities I saw the commitment to it. I really liked Ryan. When I sat down and met with Ryan, I thought he was a sharp young guy and he sincerely asked me, he wanted my help. It's been great working for Ryan. It's been just a phenomenal experience. I knew they had a good football team. They were hungry. And then we had been out west so long. When we came back to Oxford, which we had lived there, I'd lived there 3 times in Oxford, once as a kid and as a coach, and then a second time as a coach. And then we were closer to all our family is in Nashville, all my wife's family. We wanted to stay in the area. We could have gone really 3 other places farther away. Power 5 type things. But I felt like Memphis was a place we could go, be very, very successful, and be in an area that we loved and we wanted to be in. And we just loved that area and loved being close to Nashville. And I tell you, the emphasis that Memphis has put on football, it's not the same as it was when I was playing high school football and coming out and then coaching against them through the years. We are definitely a place that has great fan support, definitely a place that has all the facilities you need. And and the kids are excited about playing. It's fun to watch these kids here at Memphis when they go anywhere, but when they go to the Liberty Bowl, it's like they're on another level. They love playing there. And I think it's because of the fans and the history of the Liberty Bowl. It's a special place for them.
So what is, as I said earlier, you've coached at every level and stopped at a lot of different places. What is the biggest difference, because you've recently done these back-to-back, at recruiting at a group of 5 school versus a Power 5 school? I mean, I know there's got to be some differences, other than the obvious money and having the, certain resources, but what are some of the differences in recruiting to those 2 types of schools?
Well, I think a lot of times at the different schools, you kind of with the whole recruiting process, which y'all do a great job with, you get all those early stars for the kids, which are good, but at the same time, it kind of attracts different interests. And so what you have to do a little bit more at the group of 5, I think, is really research the kids harder. And you can find what I would call a diamond in the rough that will be extremely successful. And sometimes at the Power 5 schools, they won't roll the dice on some of those kids because they get so much media attention with it. And I think they miss out on some really good players because I think it's truly evaluation process that makes it be successful. So to me, that's probably the biggest thing, is getting over, quote, the conference name you're in, for some of these kids, recruiting them. And but last year, I know that Ryan and our staff did a great job. I thought we had a phenomenal recruiting class, I thought. And a lot of those guys chose us over some other Power Fives. I feel like they got a feel for what that's all about and understood it. And it's a special place. And the conference we play in is a phenomenal conference. And there's, quite a few teams that could beat a lot of the Power Five teams. It'd be ranked high in a lot of the Power Five conferences if we were in those type of situations. So I think that whole landscape's probably going to change again here in 2 years. So it'd be interesting to see how that unfolds.
Yeah, it never seems to stop.
No, it doesn't.
I'll jump in here with a recruiting question. What's one personality trait in a recruit that would make you stop recruiting someone?
If their ego was too big, if I could tell they really weren't going to take coaching, or if I'm talking to a high school coach or something, he says, he's really hard to coach. To me, that's a character trait. And I think if you do that and you bring them someplace and they're not able to play early, and they're going to transfer, they're just going to be out of there. And I think that the character trait of being able to want to be coached and want to get better, that they're going to listen to you, they're going to try to get better, they don't think they've already arrived. I think that's a huge hurdle to overcome. And I think that hurts more great high school players that go to college than their talent, than their athleticism, than their intelligence. It's their ego is so big that once they realize, hey, I'm not starting right off the bat, and they don't listen and they don't get better, and they can't overcome the competition factor. And I think it all has to do with their ego and wanting to be coached and wanting to learn.
Is that, do you see more of that now than compared to when you first started coaching and recruiting? Do you think social media plays a big part of that?
Yes, you do see more of it. To be honest with you, you really do. I think social media does have something to do with that. But I think when you sit down with a kid and talk to them, you can tell if they're genuine or not. And, I've had quite a few guys that I've recruited through the years, and I've kind of tracked them, and it's amazing. I was probably right on most of them that they didn't make it, where they didn't end up making it. And because you don't know, when you get to college, everybody else is just as good as you, basically. And so the competition factor of being able to handle not being the star at the beginning is probably the biggest deterrent for these young men.
All right. And early in coaching, what kept you in coaching? Because a lot of times, coaches, they struggle early and they go to a different profession. What kept you in coaching?
The passion of working with these young men. And the kids that you run across, that their lives drastically change because you found them as a recruit, and then they come to the school and you work with them and their lives drastically change. They graduate, they move on. You see them mature before your eyes because of all the situation they're under. I mean, to me, and I know I'm a football coach, but to me, football is such a team sport compared to any other sport there is. And you have 85 guys on scholarship and only 11 play at a time. So there's got to be you got to put your ego on the shelf, and you got to go to work, and you got to be a part of something that's bigger than you. And when they learn that, and then the academic side of it, they put all that together, and then the time management, and then how much we have to push them for them to be great and for us to be successful. You're able to help mold a young man into something special that's going to be successful in life. And I think that's what I enjoy doing with it.
Yeah, I know football players, they love to, talk trash and banter back and forth. Now, do coaches do that? Like maybe like in spring practice or fall camp, do like you and Coach Johns, do you ever jaw back and forth?
No, we don't. Coach Johns is phenomenal coach. We don't jaw back and forth, but every once in a while, you'll tease a receiver, or they'll tease you back, or say, hey, we'll tell the DB, hey, I'll see one of the receivers, hey, your self check today. We're not even, oh, coach, I'm gonna toast y'all. Just things like that are all just in fun. But we do. Coach Johns is a phenomenal coach on offense. He really challenges me on defense, which is good. So when we get out there, we're trying to compete, but it's a very friendly compete. And we also, the great thing about Coach Johns, we can sit down and talk and say, what could I do better? Nice. And he was saying he would too. And I think that's really important, that you put your ego aside again, and then you can keep growing, because nobody ever attains enough knowledge. And I think the longer I've been in the business, the more I realize I don't know. And I think that I can learn and gain knowledge from other guys on the other side of football to help our side, especially the way football keeps changing and it's so drastically tilted towards offensive rules. You got to find different ways to help on defense, and the offensive coaches can help you with that.
Yeah, if Larry were only here, Brian, to hear that, he'd be so happy to hear a defensive coach say that the rules have tilted greatly in the defense's favor.
No, the offense's favor.
Or in the offensive favor. Sorry. Yeah, we need to move it back the other way. That's right.
Yeah,
you didn't say that. No, not that. So you talked earlier about Coach Cutt, who said he preferred to be in the press box. What about you? Do you prefer to be down on the field or upstairs?
No, I think you definitely need to be upstairs, especially in today's football where you don't have any time. Everybody, especially playing fast, especially on defense. And the offensive coordinator is usually in the box looking at you and making checks off what you do. So I think you can see quicker how they're attacking you. Down on the field, it's really hard. Now, I know some people call it down on the field, but I think you're calmer upstairs. You can write things down. You can see things better. And you can kind of see how they're attacking you and doing that. So I would rather be in the box. I actually think nobody will ever do it. But the way the football game has gone now, with all the analytics, with all the fast pace, I think a head coach would do better in the box than he would on the sidelines. There is no doubt in my mind, because he could strategically handle both sides, see it all, see the clock, be able to understand the analytics better. Instead of somebody yelling in your ear, reading a book to you and all the different things, you got it all in front of you. You can make decisions quicker. I had a friend who was a Division II coach who didn't have a big staff. So he did it all from the box, and he was very successful. But I just don't think that it would go over real well in major college football. But to me, it makes a lot of sense.
Well, that puts somebody out of business, out of work too, because then what's the get back coach going to do if the coach is up in the box and not holding the head coach back from running on the field?
He'll get the other coaches back. They're all excited out there.
Well, I'm sure he prefers to have one guy to drag back on the field versus 7 or 8 of you. So just a couple questions. Who is someone in your career who their growths as a player surprised you from what you originally saw? Not that they were a bad player, but just that somebody ended up like, holy cow, that guy ended up a lot better than I thought he would.
Well, a guy named Philip Lindsay, who played for me at Colorado, who 3 years ago won the Rookie of the Year in the NFL. Philip was a young man I signed in Colorado. When I signed him, he weighed 145 pounds and had a torn up knee. But I had just got the job. He had committed to Colorado before. Nobody else offered him. And he called me. I called him like you do when you get a job. And I said, hey, coach, do I still have a scholarship? He said, let me come down and sit down with your family. I was just trying to meet all the kids. And so I went in the house and met with him. I could just see it through his eyes. But he literally weighed 145 pounds. He was 5'8" and a half. But I just saw something in his soul. He had that it factor. He wanted to be coached. He wanted to be great. And so his pedigree is his dad had played at Colorado State. His uncle had played at another school. There's a good pedigree. So I took him, and then his freshman redshirt year, he didn't play at all, just had to rehab his knee. And then his redshirt freshman year, he's on the scout team. And then his redshirt sophomore year, he starts covering kicks a little bit and kick returning, and I'm like the 4th team tailback. And then his junior year, he's starting out, and then all of a sudden he takes off and gains like 1,400 yards, has a great year. And then 2017, he's the only back-to-back rusher in the history of Colorado football to gain over 1,000 yards back-to-back years. And so he was a special player. And then nobody drafts him. I keep telling everybody to draft him. And then Denver takes him, and so they do a television interview, a radio interview. I said, well, he'll be the face of the Broncos as soon as y'all get him. No. And they draft all these. He beat them all out. gains over 1,000 yards, rookie of the year, Pro Bowl, everything. And then now he just signed with the Houston Texans. But it would be Philip Lindsay. And he was a true example of what I'm talking about. Graduated, did everything right, and just a phenomenal, phenomenal young man.
One last question for me. If Larry was here, he would ask it. We asked Coach Johns what was his biggest blunder or boneheaded play as a player, but we're going to change it up a bit for you. What's the biggest blunder play calling for you? Is there one play that comes to mind?
Wow. Biggest blunder as a play caller. As a head coach or a coordinator?
Either or, you pick.
Okay. I think I made a few boneheaded fourth down calls. Should have gone for it a couple of times. Didn't go for it. Went for it a couple of times. I think there was a couple of those. And I guess the fourth down call back then was a little bit bigger deal than it is now. Now everybody expects you to go for it on fourth down. So I would say there was a couple of those that I made through the years for sure.
So the ultimate question, you've been around this country. Who has the best barbecue in the country?
Memphis by far.
Yeah.
Not even close. My agent's Jimmy Sexton. He's been that for years and years. And so every Christmas he would always send us a huge thing of Corky's barbecue. And then one of those, things that has the frozen ice in it. And so we'd always look forward to that. And there's a bunch of great barbecue places in Memphis. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, Coach Johns kind of had a little more trouble with that because he spent a year in Texas, so that question kind of got him a little bit.
I spent 4 years in Texas, but I still think Memphis barbecue's the best. I mean, and there's a lot of different joints just besides the major ones that are awesome too now.
That's right. I do have one more question, and this kind of puts you on the spot for this team. Who's somebody that we're not talking about on your defense right now that people need to remember their name?
John Tate. John Tate had played in 2019, and then last year he was playing. He tore his Achilles and was out. And so when he played in 2019, he was like 300 and I think 15 pounds, bigger guy, just was an okay backup D-line. He completely changed his body. He's 285 pounds, stronger, got rid of the body fat, had a great spring. I think he'll be an excellent defensive lineman for us this fall. I think so. I think John Tate will be a guy that they'll be pleasantly surprised to see him out there compared to what he was.
Awesome. Well, Coach, thanks so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule. I know this is kind of what little bit of downtime you guys get as college football coaches. It's not the old days of 6 months out of the year. It's a 12-month-a-year job, but appreciate you joining us here tonight and telling us a little bit about why you coach in your past.
Well, thank you for what you do, and thanks for having me on, and y'all have a great night.
Thanks.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Coach.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.